Being this meeting of the Public Safety Committee, order on Friday, December 6th, 2024. Bob's not going to be here today, so I'm your chairperson. Hopefully we're done by 10 o'clock because that's when I have to leave. So yeah, I'm going to work. So. To number 2 is roll call.
Manning.
Here.
Whitehouse. Hurt. Cosgrove.
Here.
Frank. Severson.
Present.
Fleming. Here.
And are we in compliance with open meetings law? Agenda item number 4 is approval of our 14-point agenda. Is there a motion? Second. A motion by Mr. Cosgrove, seconded by Mr. Manning. Any discussion on our agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And then number 5, approval of our minutes from November 1st. Additions or corrections to those minutes?
Maureen, there's no audio.
We got a motion by Mr. Cosgrove to approve our minutes from November 1st. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Fleming. Any further discussions or amendments to those minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And item number 6 is public comment. Is there any public comment? Hearing no public comment, we'll move on to our reports on agenda item number 7, starting out with the Sheriff's Department. Clay's not here, so I should probably first do that.
Clay will be right back, so if you wanted to skip us for now.
All right. You probably's got corner. You got that?
I don't know.
I've got it here.
Holy.
We need a corner.
Very short coroner's report for this month as we were working on compiling the annual report for 2024. But in total, responded to 8 calls for service in November. 7 to 8 of those were cremations. Ages ranged from 19 to 91. 2 of those decedents were on hospice. For causes of death, we saw 3 cancer-related, 2 heart-related, 1 lung disease, 1 injury related to a fall, and 1 suicide. Total as of December 1st, we were at 109 cases for the year. I believe we're up near about 110 or 111. I'm sorry, about 113 now. And then again, annual report will be at the next month's meeting.
Any questions, concerns, comments? Coroner's report. Agenda item number C is the circuit court judge.
Just a few things. I'll try to be brief. So we've been working on some of the furniture items in the court area. We have been looking for chairs and hoping that there'd be some appropriate chairs out at the campus. We've had discussions about that. I've spoken, Candace and I did meet about that. We're still, I guess, looking for chairs. We agreed we'd have some follow-up on that. And we aren't quite there. We're looking for a couple of chairs for the jury room, the priority being comfortable chairs. And I don't know if you came up with anything, Candace, but I'm still looking for that. We have older chairs. The chairs that are in the jury room are probably from the 1950s, 60s, something like that. And they're fairly comfortable, but a couple of them were in disrepair, and so they were removed. So we still need a couple of chairs in the jury room. We were also hopeful that there would be enough chairs to help fill in the gallery in the back of the courtroom. We have about half the chairs we need, or 2/3 of the chairs that we need. There's a huge open space in the gallery and it looks pretty ridiculous. So we're still working on that. We don't know exactly where that's at either, do we?
So the last I heard from Randy, I thought the message that he was given was that none of the solutions we had provided were acceptable. And at this point, we don't really have other alternatives for you. You know, it's in the quantity that you need. Those red chairs, if those don't work, there's nothing else in a larger quantity for the gallery. As far as comfortable chairs, kind of like what you have now, there's nothing out at the campus. I did go out and walk around one more time. And there is nothing else. The chairs in the library are cushy, but they're short. They wouldn't work at the table because those tables are lower. And so there really isn't anything other than kind of what we brought and what we showed you that we think would be workable. And as far as the jury room goes, we can bring at least a couple of those chairs in there for, backup, if you'd like, but yeah, there's not, after you and I spoke, Randy and I did go out, we walked around again, we looked again, and there just is not, and again, everything that's out there is 20 years old. I mean, none of it's brand new. So, and some of it older. I will say the chairs in the library that we thought would be a viable option, are much older. They would be more comfortable. And so if you're looking at just having some backup chairs, so that if you do have spare jurors, or not spare jurors, but the backup jurors, they could sit in them if they, it would be fine as far as comfort. It's just the fact that they would be lower at the table. So that's really where we're at on those.
All right, well, maybe we'll have more discussion about that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that that's gonna work.
Yeah.
So we gotta come up with some kind of solution for both of those. I know we're in a holding pattern, trying to figure out what's gonna happen with the space needs and,
Yes.
not wanting to do something prematurely. But it's definitely a need. There's gonna come a day when we're gonna need the courtroom gallery chairs that we don't have. Because there's gonna be a trial or some kind of event where we're gonna need it, and then we're gonna have to scramble and we don't know what to do. So it's better to figure out a solution for that now.
A question I had about chairs and just thought about it, forgot about it till now. Down in the conference room in the basement, would we be able to switch out the chairs that we have in the jury room and get enough chairs from there for the jury room?
Are those on wheels? I'd have to look at them. Honestly, I think I've been in that conference room twice. If they're on wheels, no.
So they're okay with wheels in the conference room, but sure.
Yeah, because that conference room is hardly used. It's used very minimally. But in the jury room, again, we have a liability issue with wheeled chairs. And so if they are wheeled, I need to take a look at those and see if there's a way we can get the wheels off of them. Honestly, because as I shared with the judge, in my prior county, we had a wheeled chair in the law library. Someone fell backwards, fell out of the wheeled chair, sued the county, and we had to pay $60,000 plus all medical expenses simply because someone fell out of a chair. And when you have the average age of the jurors, which we have, which is probably older than in other counties, that has to be taken into account as well, that if someone falls, the damage that can be done to an elderly person versus a younger person, not that it can't happen to anyone, but that likelihood is higher.
So does that mean all office chairs and everything? are
Office
supposed
chairs?
to be-
Office chairs are our county employees. They're covered differently than, So our county employees, if they're using those chairs, that's a lot different than someone from the public that's coming in to do some sort of a civic service. Not that they're not covered, but again, then we're responsible. And if they do, 9 times out of 10, people, would say, oh, cover my medical expenses. But there's those 1 or 2 that will say, nope, I'm going to sue. And then that increases the liability for the county overall.
So at some point, we're gonna have to come up with an appropriate solution one way or another.
But I'll take a look, Stacy, at those chairs on the first floor and see if there's a possibility if the wheels can come off.
If we could remove I think they're the old county boardroom chairs, so I'm thinking probably not,
But, well, it's worth a look.
because of how they're.
Yep, I'll take a peek.
We are also poised to have a little kiosk or workstation brought into the courtroom that'll be utilized by the court security officer. And that's been a long time in coming. And that's all part and parcel of sort of our new and improved enhanced court security. It allows the court security officer to sit up a little bit higher. They'll be in a little bit higher plane than everybody else, which has its advantages for a number of reasons. Eventually, we're hoping to get laptops or tablets so that the court security officer has access to the cameras that are being, the camera views that are being installed outside of each courtroom, and in the small courtroom. That seems to make sense to everybody as well. Given our limited resources, then they can have eyes on what's going on in the courtroom and outside the courtroom. And then they can all, we're trying to figure out how to have them connect to dispatch so they can have instant communication with dispatch too. So that hasn't manifested yet, but it's in the works and we're slowly crawling toward our solution. Yes.
The podium is in the building, so I don't know if you were aware of that, but
No.
it's downstairs.
Okay, great,
Yep, so we got that step accomplished here.
great. And then we did, I guess it was decided that the podium that was brought in, it would be too big for the small courtroom, so we're looking at hopefully purchasing something a little smaller there, but along the same lines. We continue to, I guess the cameras that are set to be installed are supposed to happen by the end of this month, so it's another step forward too. That's great. There should be one, I believe, outside each courtroom. There should be one installed in the small courtroom as well. We continue to meet I convene 2 committees, courthouse security and facilities committee that meets quarterly, and the criminal justice coordinating committee. And that meets quarterly as well. We met just this week with the courthouse security and committee, facilities committee. And it's in that context that we are talking about some of these things like courtroom security, courthouse security. Like we talk a lot about the security coming in. You know, we were down to 2 entrances, of course, down on the first floor. But what to do about that in terms of both providing security to the whole courthouse and not just the courtroom. And we should do, there's a dream of getting a metal detector at some point, whether it's utilized all the time or just occasionally for special occasions. And we talk a lot about that as well. So anybody here is always welcome to come to that meeting, and we're happy to put you on the list if you're interested in doing that.
Like the cameras and stuff, they're budgeted through the sheriff's department, or how's that budgeted?
That's part of the radio hour project. A lot of extra wiring that had to take place, coordinating there. A couple of things in terms of court functions. You all know that we have a court program called Treatment Court. And I just wanted to let everybody know that we had another graduate yesterday, and now we've had more than 30 graduates from our treatment court program. These are folks who have very clear and serious substance abuse problems, such that it's gotten them tangled up in criminal justice system. The individual that graduated yesterday had been in our program for a year and a half. And had done very well, and we were very happy to see him graduate. Our treatment court team utilizes a multidisciplinary team. We have team members from the sheriff's department, from the local police department, from probation and parole, from the district attorney's office, from the victim witness coordinator's office. We have treatment providers. Of course, I'm part of the team as well. We have a public defender. We all meet every other week to discuss all the participants in our program and to help guide them through this program. There's a lot of accountability and with appropriate incentives for these folks. And it's really a phenomenal program. So I appreciate you letting me sort of highlight that program today, as we had a graduate yesterday. Last thing I think I'll mention today, or a couple things, back to furniture that I forgot. We had a little station set up in the hallway downstairs outside clerk of court's office. You'll see it if you go down there. There'd always been one computer down there, and that was a CCAP access computer for people that wanted to come in and sit down and view court records. So in the old days, you could go into the clerk of court's office, you'd ask for a file, because they're all open records. The clerk would bring it to you, you'd open up your file, review it, close it, and give it back. Well, that doesn't happen anymore, because all the records are digital. So if you want to look up something about a case, you would go to that workstation out in the hallway and look it up on CCAP. You would actually be able to see all the documents, and you still will. But now we've added a second computer out in the hallway, and that is a legal research computer. So we are charged with maintaining a law library. Every county is charged with maintaining a law library for the public to use. And nowadays, in the old days, you know, you get the books, you get the law books, and some people still do, but it's very few and far between, much more expensive than the digital options. So we have now budgeted for a public law library, and from the campus, we got a very nice sort of 2-computer station. If you go down there and see it, it looks very nice for 2 people to sit, whether you wanted to look at particular court cases or if you want to do some legal research with a fairly basic option for some digital legal research. We're getting that set up in order to satisfy that requirement to have a law library, basically, is what that is. So, and then the last thing I'll mention today is that we are having a continuing and growing need for interpreters, particularly Spanish interpreters and certified interpreters. Certified interpreters are few and far between. It's very, very difficult to become a certified court interpreter. And for whatever reason, we've had to increase, we put most of these cases in blocks. Like we were having them once every 3 months, I think, for 3 hours. And then we decided that wasn't enough because we couldn't get everything done. So then we put it every month for 2 hours. And then we decided that wasn't enough either. So now we're moving to about every other week or twice a month. We're having interpreter block. And what that means ultimately is that we're having more and more Spanish speaking folks come through our system, and it's just more expensive. So we utilize 100% remote interpreters. And I guess what I'm saying is, if you know anybody that's fluent in Spanish and would be interested in becoming a certified interpreter around here, you may want to encourage them and connect them with us, and we can connect them with the resources, because it would be great to have a local option. And it may actually be a little bit more affordable.
What's the procedure for doing that?
They get, there's training and testing through the director of state court's office, and it's only offered certain times of the year. The first part of the testing is a written test, and those that pass that then get to go on to the verbal examination part, and they have to become proficient in simultaneous interpretation, where you're hearing it and hearing English, speaking Spanish at the same time. It's very difficult. They follow national standards, but the state also has the standards. Some say that Wisconsin's is harder. Don't know.
Mr. Chair. If you get the WCA magazine that comes out every month, it highlights courts this month, and there is a whole section on the court interpreters in there. So it's a pretty good read for a number of reasons, with all the challenges facing counties and the court system and the funding mechanisms and all of the things, because that's on WCA's platform this year. But the interpreters are a struggle for a lot of people.
So I got
national level issue or?
It is.
Yes.
It is. It's kind of like the court reporter shortage, which is also a national issue, and Wisconsin's done some things to address that.
So are these people then contracted through the state?
No,
No.
they're individual vendors,
So then the county would contract?
but they're listed through the states.
Okay.
If you become state certified, and counties don't receive any reimbursement if you don't use certified people.
Okay.
So just using somebody who can speak Spanish is not, doesn't solve it.
That's all I have.
I have a question.
Julie?
The treatment court, is that, do most of the counties do that, or are we very unique?
No, almost all Wisconsin counties now have some sort of treatment court. And they're all primarily grant funded. And I should have mentioned that. Our treatment court is 100% grant funded. We do we are required to have some in-kind matches. So in other words, people that are county employees and spend their time in treatment court, we can use the time that they're spending as an in-kind match. But right now it's all grant funded. And yeah, there's been a huge push in the last decade or two to implement these in the different counties. So we have one, it's really all we can manage, but some counties, bigger counties, have multiple treatment courts. And they're not all just substance abuse. There's some counties have like a veterans court. So sometimes veterans find themselves caught up in the criminal justice system, just given the fact of what they've gone through as a military member. And they need special treatment in order to overcome those things to get them out of the criminal justice system. Some counties have mental health courts, people that struggle very much with mental health. So if we were a bigger county with more resources, we might potentially have more than one treatment court.
Any other questions, Judge McDougal? All right, we'll move on to agenda item number D. Clerk report, Stacy.
Thank you. Candace mentioned the Wisconsin County Association, the WCA publication. Yeah, do take a good read of that. The county association has targeted 3 areas, the courts being one of them, for a major increase in funding to the counties from the state. The courts part of that is a direct result of what I've been talking to you guys about. The Clerk of Courts Association, my work as the president the last 3 years. This has been to forge this relationship with the counties association to try to get their help in lobbying the state, lobbying the governor to throw more money to the counties, because the partnership between the state and the county has become lopsided. And the counties are desperately in need of more funding. Tricky part of all of this is that the director of state courts, state agency, comes out with their own budget. So people think the courts were all, courts are the courts. Well, the circuit courts have different needs, and circuit courts are at the county level. The director of state courts, they're working with the Supreme Court. Supreme Court has different needs. They have different asks. So the director of state courts office came out with a much lesser ask than what the Wisconsin Counties Association is helping us to ask. So people need to keep in mind that there's different needs on the state and the county level. So some people say, why isn't your ask the same as theirs? Because their ask doesn't include any money for the counties. Their ask is to increase things for them, to build like a security agency for the Wisconsin Supreme Court, things like that. So part of our ask on the county level with the county association is to increase funding so that we can do things like provide security for our circuit courts, and like all of these things that we've struggled with and that we've spun our wheels on in Richland County for years, how that we have enough money to have the sheriff's department have an officer or officers who are dedicated to court security. If we get more money as a county, those are the things that can help address. So, yeah, read that article. If you got questions, ask me about it. I know that as an association, we're kind of waiting to see how things shake out with leadership at the Capitol. Howard Markline is the chair of the Senate's part of the Joint Finance Committee. That's good for us. And Tony Kurtz, we think is going to also be, Tony's going to be right in the mix with the Assembly. And so we have a whole plan through our association and through who we work with. We have a legislative liaison that we contract with and kind of helps guide the message so that people understand who their senators, who their assembly people are, and to have regular contact with them. So over the last couple of years, one of the things that we've done as a group is to engage our membership and have them making regular contact, asking for meetings with their lawmakers, having them come to the courthouse, them go to the Capitol when they get a chance. We're gonna have a legislative day in early February where clerks of court are gonna go to the Capitol and do a lot of groundwork, but in between that stuff, we're trying to get people over that hurdle of like being afraid to talk to their lawmakers because that's so important. We're elected, they're elected. And I've heard that oftentimes on issues, bills and stuff that are put forth, they never get a single comment from anybody on it. So anytime that they get a contact from us, from you guys, whatever, that means a lot on issues. So as we get a little bit more information on this and put it together over the next month or two, I will be coming to the board and saying, this is what our message is. Will you help us and either pass a resolution or whatever, help us be more soldiers on the ground to talk about that stuff and try to get it through to the finish line. Because it's not just for the courts, it's for the county. It's what we've been trying to do. And I got other clerk friends that have also been in leadership positions that now work with the county association in counties much like ours up north that, you know, like throughout the state. And we're all, it's kind of the small counties are the ones that have taken hold of this issue and said, we're the ones struggling the most, would you please help us? So they've heard us and it's good. Right now in our office, just in the mix of the normal day-to-day stuff we're doing, Clay, you'll be happy to know that I am 70 ordinances in of the 90 ordinances of chapter 23.33, everything pertaining to ATVs and UTVs, so that the county, so the sheriff's department, as they issue citations for infractions of ATV, UTV ordinances, they have locally adopted the state statutes, but they can put themselves as the plaintiff agency on it. And that means more money to the, instead of giving all that money to the state, if the plaintiff is the county retains more. And I'm sure there's gonna be like 5 ordinances that you guys probably use all the time, but we're gonna enter all 90 of them. But then we need MIS to put that into tracks. So we've done our end. Yeah. It's a lot. But it's hopefully today I can hammer out the remainder 20. I'm building it into the maintenance of our software so it connects to financials and everything. But then MIS has to do theirs. So
All the ordinance numbers changed. It's just, yeah.
that's what it involves. But if I can do it by myself, I think you guys you'll have no problem.
Figured out.
So, yeah. That's all I got.
Questions for Dr. Ford?
Thanks.
Register and probate.
Morning. I don't have a lot to add. The one thing I would just like to reiterate that I do feel like would be very helpful to have somebody from the county board attend our court security meetings directly. I know I had reached out to Dave Turk and some other ones, and Dave was traveling that day, so he had responded and stuff. But I guess that would be the one comment, is to get a little more connect on having some representation. And so I don't know if there's anyone in particular other than Bob. He's the chairperson of this committee, if anyone else is particularly interested. But I do feel like that would just help us feel a bit more connected. I know Candace has been busy, hopefully you could, start attending some more meetings. Everyone, especially in December, I understand everybody's going in a lot of different directions and there's a lot going on with space study and space study and all of those things. So I get that, but going forward, that would be one request is to have somebody from the board attend. So even if it's not the same person, I don't know, since Bob's not here, if you'll nominate him.
What's the next meeting is March something, right?
Yeah, so I'm changing the date, so we're preparing the judge's calendar for 2025. That's been in the works, and that's one of the things I've been working diligently on is the judge's calendar for 2025 as an update. So we were looking at having those on Friday, but that doesn't work well for MIS. So I think, is anyone, just real quick, does Thursday afternoons, are there meetings already going on?
The only one I can think of is department head the third Thursday
Okay,
of every month.
okay, and the courthouse security only meets quarterly. So we could easily avoid that because department heads only once a month and this only meets quarterly. So we're thinking maybe like Thursday afternoons, kind of at the end of the day, but maybe.
Oh, and public works is at 4 p.m. the first Thursday.
Okay,
So that would be, as long as you avoid that first week, I think, or if it were earlier, it would be fine.
okay.
But those are the only two that I can off the top of my head think of. Board of Adjustments is, but that's at like 1, right?
Like the second Thursday would be good.
So I think,
So we'll take a look at that. I'll try and keep all of those, the Public Works and Board of Adjustments.
Yep.
But that would be, other than that, I'm under budget right now, so that's good. I'm gonna send out a reminder to all of the attorneys to get their bills in here at the end of the year. Sometimes we get hit with that. So I think it's been mentioned before, but I'm just gonna mention it again. That the smaller counties are struggling on multiple areas. One, Stacy's mentioned we are shorthanded on court reporters. We're also very shorthanded on attorneys. And that is across the state of Wisconsin. The rural counties are struggling for attorneys to come and work. So we've had several that have retired. Some have actually passed away. And so we are in an attorney desert around here. So if any of you know young people graduating from law school at all, encourage them to come to any rural county, but especially Richland County. So we are utilizing attorneys from Dodgeville, Reedsburg, Viroqua, Madison. Our public defender, I just noticed, is out of Oshkosh for a Monday hearing. Without Zoom, we could not do that. And Zoom is not ideal. It's not ideal for the attorneys who have to meet with their clients. It's not ideal when you're trying to read body language and all of that. So we all think Zoom gets us by, but it is not like being with the person one-on-one. So I just wanted to kind of mention that I'm happy our legislators are starting to realize that I think counties were kind of taken for granted for a long time. Everything was just going along. And I think on multiple levels, that there's some things that need to be looked at across the board. But other than that, that's all I have for this month.
At one time, the county had 2 supervisors that were member of courthouse security. So is that not a thing anymore?
We've had 3, since Judge McDougall's reinstated this, off the top of my head, I know for a fact that we've had 3 courthouse security meetings. And to my knowledge, we have not had a board member attend any of the courthouse security meetings since they've been reinstated.
By the Supreme Court rule, they are supposed to take part in it.
So this committee is not something we made up, it's,
No.
I used to sit on that.
Right.
but,
I was a
so
member of
it's,
that, so that's why I'm asking, like,
Yeah.
there used to be 2 county supervisors. I was wrong, this left was another one, Dave was another one too. Prior years, so.
Mr. Chair, we could actually place that on the agenda for campus reconfiguration committee meeting at 6 o'clock on Tuesday. I can add that to the listing. It's not in our new board rules. So it would have to be a discussion on, do they want to add that meeting to the actual listing? That would require full board action, but then we could have that as a committee assignment, as well. So we can kind of go down that road and have that discussion.
I think the Supreme Court rule actually says the county board chairperson should be
does.
on there, so,
Mhm.
and I suppose it could be that person or their designee, but I'd have to look.
Carrie, we'd welcome you if you want, because you don't have enough to do, right? Not.
Any other questions for registered probate? I don't see Jennifer here for district attorney, so unless you move me to as a pretty
Separate branch, man.
interesting. So we'll jump back up to the sheriff, so I guess Clay, if you wanna.
And sorry, I had to step out for a phone call earlier. Yes, so, monthly report for November, we had 60,284 and 37 cents for vouchers, 42 bookings for the month. Average population was 32.48. We had 395 complaints on the month. Calls for service for the sheriff's deputies. Traffic citations, we had 19, 27 civil processor, which is quite a jump from October. 11 transports, and 6 was our average population on electronic monitoring. Dispatch activity, we had 608 calls for service, 85 calls for EMS, 116 calls for the police department, and we had 15 calls for Richland Center Fire. That was one thing that I've been asked to add was fire calls. This is just Richland Center Fire. It's not our other fire districts, but that's what we had for them for the month. Additionally, earlier in November, we had our closeout meeting with our state jail inspector. So I think we'll probably talk more in depth onto what we got back on the jail inspection next month when we do our annual committee inspection of the jail. But one thing that I do want to note, one of the violations, which has been a recurring violation for us, was our classification. So how we separate our inmates based on classification in the jail. Although he did say that he's seen improvement in our classification and how we're separating our inmates, he still did knock us as a violation for it. So we are making plans. We've made a plan for how we're going to address that in the future. But it is going to require us to start shipping inmates out. And we'll probably start that next year. So it's not going to be like all the time. We're not going to have inmates housed in other counties all the time. But there's a good chance we're going to have to start housing our female population side of our jail. So, because that's really where we get into trouble is the ability to separate our females. And if we didn't have a block tied up with our female population, we could better separate our population as well. So I don't know how often that's going to happen, but the reality of it is if we don't start doing this, the state's going to step in and tell us how to do it.
2025, Clay, or 2026?
2025. Yeah. So if we don't start doing it on our own, the state's going to tell us how to do it. So
Take a peek at the budget then.
yeah.
That's gonna have some impacts, so we better be.
Where do you think they'll go?
Likely a neighboring county, Iowa, Vernon.
They all have.
We've been having these conversations throughout this year where like we're going into a weekend and we know things are tight, that we may have to ship people out. And so it's just, we've been kind of on that bubble here and there, and well, not on the bubble, we've needed to. But our neighboring counties, usually will help us out, and we kind of, I wouldn't maybe say an ultimatum, but kind of an ultimatum. He said, you need to figure this out, or we're gonna create a housing plan for you. So, yeah.
At our expense.
Yeah.
What's the cost per day?
Right now it's about $60 a day to house them outside, and that doesn't include, medical expenses or anything like that. It's just, yeah, transport costs. It doesn't count transport costs. And so, yeah, it's around $60 a day was last figure I heard.
Would it be possible for supervisor to tour that? I know we have to be doing something.
Yes, so, next month we will schedule at the end of the meeting a closed session to do a jail inspection, a committee jail inspection. So we'll probably discuss the report as well at that time. So other than that, not to be all doom and gloom, the inspection report, again, he compliments our staff and the awesome work they do with the limitations that our facility provides us. He doesn't like that the negatives to overshadow. He did very much compliment. He's seen, like I said, in the classifications, he's seen we've made strides to improve it. It's just not improved enough, he said. Again, he actually walks through the blocks, talks with the inmates, and generally, he doesn't get unsolicited like compliments about the staff. He does that they like the way things are being done here. That there's always those little the sink over here leaks a little bit, or stuff like that. He understands that, but he actually gets like unsolicited positive feedback about the conditions, about the staff here. And so he really did want to pass on the compliments of that and highlight the good work that my staff is doing in jail. So, yeah. I think that's all I have. Oh, do you want to look at the staffing memo? So, staffing, we're partway, or we're beginning the hiring process for the 818 position. We had 11 applicants, and we're scheduling kind of the starting of that process, or it's scheduled, I should say, to start next Friday. We are down a male jailer. We had a resignation, and so we need to advertise for that position. As you can see, I posted something on Facebook advertising for that position, but we will be starting a hiring process for the jail early next year. So I set that application process to a close on the 31st.
Besides that, two of our newer employees, Rhea and Abby, have both finished their SEO process. Abby's at the jail academy, and she's supposed to finish on December 17th with that, so we'll get her back. And then we'll be mostly trained until we get this, hopefully this other position filled.
Any questions, concerns for the sheriff? All right, we're down to agenda item number G, emergency management. Mr. Jessen?
Yes, sir. I think John Heinen's going to start off report today if he's there and ready to go.
What I've got is, other than the IPP that we've in the process of doing modifications for ECRI and MPG, there's been some changes, so we got to go back into the grant and update some financial figures and some personnel in there. I just had my second LEPC meeting here at the beginning of the week, and we took care of the plans and the election of officers. It's still going to be the same LEPC officers as before. So the EPCR side, I think, is pretty much taken care of. I haven't updated the strategic plan in the next week or so. So that'll be put to bed, and then all EMPG things, I think we've got all of the deliverables, except for maybe an outreach or two that we have to look at doing. So most of the EMPG stuff, I think, is wrapping up. So in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to start closeout on all of our grant programs. And other than that, it's whatever Mike has.
Thanks, John. A couple quick things. Earlier this week, we had a report of some, I want to say, hazardous type waste leak. I don't want to fearmonger with that statement. It wasn't overly terrible, but I just want to say thank you to all the county departments and department heads that were able to collaborate at 8 o'clock at night when the weather was terrible. Just proves the fact that we can't do it without each other, and working together as a team between departments has proven effective yet again. So thank you to all those that assisted and quickly had that mitigated. Number two, currently emergency management is looking at a program called Tango Tango. And what this does is it creates a cellular based option for radio communications. So when we look at the upgrading of the radio system, especially to the P25 digital capability, as some departments might have issues with acquiring all the radio equipment up front, or there could potentially be a radio dead zone or you're out of range. It allows the two-way radio system to work on a cellular-based device. So that's something we're currently looking at, and we believe it's a part of our IPP for assuring that we've got sustainable radio coverage and interoperability throughout the county and with our neighboring partners. Last but not least, John and I are still working through the IPP, kind of discussing next steps, looking at our goals and priorities for next year. And I think we're off to a great start, and appreciate everybody's time.
Does anyone have any questions for emergency management? All right. Agenda item number H is our PSAP and GIS grants.
I can speak to that if you're okay with that, Clay.
Yes, go ahead.
We did receive our 2023 grant payout for the PSAP. So that was $224,000. That has been deposited to pay for those expenses. So that's exciting. As most of you remember, we did get approved for the 2025 PSAP grant. So eventually we'll be starting on to those projects. The 2024, we have the GIS grant, and that spending has started. We got notice yesterday that our GIS check has been approved and should be coming soon. And our 2025 GIS grant was approved as well.
Any questions for Scott? Sure. Thank you. Agenda item number I is a radio tower project. What the heck?
I kind of, if Barb wants to chime in, but we're kind of full speed ahead on the radio tower stuff. We are, I mean, the towers we're building, the new towers are going up all over the county. We have one tower site that we kind of had to go back on in our engineering phases on. That was the Yuba Tower. We probably talked about that in past meetings. But we're kind of back in the engineering and regulatory phases on that tower. Other than that, foundations are in, shelters are going up or are up. Generators were delivered this week. So thank you to city utilities. They're housing our generators for us while we're waiting for them to be installed on sites. But yeah, we're moving right along. Barb, you got anything else to add?
I just would like to invite this entire committee to finance today at 2 o'clock. Mike will be on and give a full report on the radio project. If you look at the finance agenda and packet that's available in your iPads or online, there are several documents that discuss the finances, where we're at in the project, the contingency left, and how it's progressing. So I hope that you will all listen in if you can't be there in person for that meeting at 2 o'clock today.
When did we, start this process?
2023.
It was before that when we decided to borrow the money, though, wasn't it?
Nope.
1.2?
I think
Uh,
we've
we
been,
were,
we've been probably discussing it since 21, 22.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I know Chad was on the committee. Yeah, when we first made that decision, then we was off for a couple of years. Now we're finally building.
So all the sites are ready to go?
no, no. So Yuba, we ran into some issues securing the lease for the original Yuba site. So, we had to find a new location. So that's the one that's being kind of held up, and because we had to move, though not very far, we have to redo the regulatory work for the tower site.
Okay, so just the one is the issue.
Just the one is the issue.
Also, when you talk about contacting your congressman, we are having a slight difficulty with US Cellular. If anyone has any contacts or ways to convince US Cellular to finish those contracts, they have all of them. They're the same contract that we have signed with the Muscadet Tower, but we do need signatures from US Cellular for Boaz and Richland Center. We're just waiting on those. They're at legal at US Cellular.
Is it because of the T-Mobile?
I don't know if it's because of that merger or if or what it is. It's been a long, drawn out process.
They have been extremely difficult, non-responsive, stonewally. Yeah.
We would mainly hooked up with Buckton. We have nothing to do with that.
Oh, no, we actually avoided them because the tower rates were extremely high.
They were astronomical.
Yeah.
And item number J is courthouse security report. And cover that. Number 8 is approval of our monthly invoices.
Any questions about the bills?
Motion would be appropriate, yes. Motion by Mr. Cosgrove, second by Mr. Manning. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion carries. Agenda number 9 is discussion of possible action on the approval of the Richland County Integrated Preparedness Plan.
Okay, for this, I've got a handout, and we can do this one of two ways. Either I can have you individually tell me for each one of the action items on here, if you wanted to continue, if we should down prioritize that issue, or if we should up prioritize that issue. So either you can individually mark these, or as a group, as a consensus, we can go through each one of them. And I can mark them you'd like to do with each one of those. And Karen, if you could give a little bit of a description.
Thank you.
Of the IPP process, that'd be really helpful.
Sure. So first of all, good morning, everybody. Kind of a different feeling to be back here in the corner, just listening. And a couple times I want to chime in, and I just know that's not my role. It's not my life. But it's good to see you all this morning. So the integrated preparedness plan. This came out about 3 years ago at the federal level, and it was a way to allow federal agencies, the state agencies, and counties an opportunity to identify what preparedness activities they felt were in their specific jurisdictions. And so last year, all the counties, all 72 counties, along with the tribes, some of the tribes participated, were required to develop this integrated preparedness plan. So this was the one that was developed by myself before I left the county. And we identified, and you identified in your plan then, through some workshops and surveys, 5 different areas that you felt were higher priorities when it comes to preparedness. And every county is required to go through this process. So that's why I'm here today. I've put out to all 13 of my counties in my region that if they wanted me to attend, I would and try to participate and assist in any way I can. The integrated preparedness plan, again, is a requirement, and it's an opportunity for you at the local level to determine what are your priorities in regards to integrated preparedness. Some counties have created, one of their objectives is trying to solve the EMS problem. That's one of their integrated preparedness plan objectives. I know here, courthouse security has been on top of your list, and it was put into this plan before I left. So again, it really gives you, the locals, an opportunity to choose what do we feel is our priority when it comes to being prepared. What do we want to do in terms of exercising, planning, training, equipment we need to purchase, organizational changes, structure we need to put in place. And as John captures the data from you today, along with data that he's captured in other venues, he will put that in the plan and he'll submit it on to myself and to the program manager. And we'll review it and move it along. So the key to this really is just engagement. If there's areas in this plan that you say, you know what, last year's priority isn't this year's priority, feel free to change that. This is your plan. The plan's not going to get rejected because Richland County said we wanted to do this or not do that, or maybe there's a couple of objectives you just can't meet. It's not feasible. Just take those out and then move on, to whatever other objective you have. With that, turn it back over to John or field any questions there.
So we identified 5 priorities in our plan. Number 1 was active threat incident management, which is focused primarily on the courthouse, but it's applies to everywhere in the county essentially. However, Clay and I were kind of working on making sure that we had a good threat plan, mostly just for the courthouse for now. Now, if it becomes the issue that we're finding that highway has an issue or Pine Valley has an issue or other areas in the county also start having issues, I think we can take whatever Clay and I work on and transfer the technology, as it were, to some of these other facilities, and then put them on the plan for years out and walk them through the same process we're doing at the courthouse. So priority 1 would probably stay consistent if that happens to be the case. Priority 2 was multi-agency coordination and disaster response. It's kind of a unified command type of thing. What you're trying to do there is make sure that everyone who comes to any kind of a disaster in the county can all talk to each other and they all understand the language and they have common objectives. So that's number 2. Number 3 was integrated disaster planning. It's kind of an offshoot of number 2, but it's a little more focused on community emergency preparedness before an event and community resilience during and after an event. Priority number 4 was public information and media relations. And priority number 5, mostly for emergency management, was EOC operations. So I guess my first question is, do we still agree that those are the same top 5 priorities next year as it was last year? Anybody have any comments on that? So that those 5 are probably it for us for a while. Okay, then under each one of those, starting with priority 1, developing an active threat plan, that was something we're trying to do for 2024. I think we have most of that, but I think we probably need to walk through it a little bit more. So I was going to continue that one and then put FY 2025 on it. So that we can, at that point in time, I think, share it among the primary stakeholders and then have a discussion about it in 2025. And then from that, I would do the courthouse active threat tabletop and then move that from 24 to 25. That sounds reasonable. And I think that the functional would follow in 26 then, and the active threat full scale would be 27. Does that sound about right?
John,
Dr. Bleed, yes.
and, CRASE stands for.
CRACE is,
Citizen response to active shooter event. So that's the model that we instruct in when we, like, if you think back to, and this was the last time we did the active shooter, active threat training for the courthouse staff. CRACE is the model that we teach.
Citizen response to active shooter
Amen.
event.
If I could add something to that, one additional thing we're going to be setting forth next year as a goal is establishing we spoke about this in LEPEC the other night. We're going to establish a school safety committee. So it'll be a working group at looking at these events and making sure that we're as ready as we can be for any type of school-related emergency response needed during the active threats programs.
And then ASIM is,
Active shooter incident management. So that's a training several of us in the community have. We hosted one 2020.
2022.
It was 2022.
Courthouse, it's a community center.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I was thinking it was longer ago than that, but yeah, so that's, it's an excellent training, probably could be due to host it again if we could get it. Would be, what it is law enforcement, fire and EMS kind of all working together and, we go through how to manage that incident, right? And, they do a lot of good tabletop exercises where we go through all the necessary steps and controlling that incident and getting resources where they need to be. And it's an excellent training. Free.
Free of charge of the obviously salaries for your staff that are attending.
What do you need from us right now?
trying to figure out how to do this as fast as possible. What would you recommend? I mean, what I could do is, and I probably will never get them back if I do this, but have you take them home and then get them back to me, but I don't see how that's gonna happen.
Do you want us to fill these out of what we think are?
Yeah, that's for the committee and for everyone else who's here to have that input would be really helpful. I don't know if we're gonna be able to do it in 5 minutes, but at least the priority one, I think we more or less covered for the courthouse. And then we'd want to do the same process for 2, 3, 4, and 5.
When is this due?
Submitted December 31st.
Yeah, I would like to have responses by the end of next week at the latest. That's doable. So if this is something you could send to me via email or
Have it in electronic format that you
I
can
can
get
certainly get
to
it
everyone?
to everyone. So if I have an email list, I need a distribution list here.
Miranda can give you the distribution list.
You got everyone who's sitting at the table.
Everybody on the committee.
Public safety committee. Yeah.
Got that? And then there's some others. Jen, would you be able to do? So I've got.
You want us to check these, circle them, or?
Yeah, circle the one that you think applies. If you don't really know what training course happens to be like IS 235C type thing, if you're not really familiar with it, you can just skip that. But the ones in each one of those activities that you're really familiar with, just give me an idea if we should do less of it, the same of it, or more of it for the upcoming 1 year and then 3 year perspective.
If you're looking through that, you see it's acronym IS in front of a number for the course. That's an independent study course. You can on your own, on your time, through the emergency management. The other thing is that there's training in here that you as a county want conducted. Like, for instance, there's a incident command system for senior officials and elected officials. It's a 4-hour class. That could be delivered right here. Those courses that you might want to have need to be submitted to John. Actually, for the next round of training, he's going to need them by next Friday. So if you see something on there, a training that you would really like to have here, then get that to him. He'll submit it to me, or it might be one that I have to submit on his behalf at the region level, then we can get that in. Because there's only twice a year that submittals for training can be done, and it's typically in June and December.
All right, and so what I'll try to do is get everyone in this room a copy, hopefully right afternoon or thereabouts. And then I'll just, whatever notes you've taken here, you can just transcribe to the digital copy somehow. I think you might be able to use the highlight function that's going to come to you in the DocX, which is Word for Windows or Microsoft Word. And in there should be a highlight feature. Just highlight down, prioritize, continue, or increase effort, so I know which one you selected. And then I'll start compiling those right away. So look for an email from me this afternoon.
And the other members that are not here, like Mr. Woodhouse, Mr. Turk, and Mr. Frank, they're all going to get that email.
Yeah, so, yeah, I can put a description in the email what it is and how to mark it up and how to get it back to me for everyone on the committee, plus the extras of us here. Would that probably work, I think?
Other suggestions you may consider putting in your plan, because it really does have to do with something you identified, is the radio system's going to be up and operational when?
Well,
July.
yeah,
July. So you could put that in there. And listening this morning, there's a lot of effort going on in the courthouse, which is, courthouse security. That doesn't just affect the court, officials, but that affects all people that are coming in, your citizens. So some of the things that you've already done, I would include those in there. And some of the things that you're working on, I would include those in there. Because Wisconsin Emergency Management, we're not the only one that's looking at this. The Adjutant General of the National Guard looks at these plans. There's other state agencies. And of all the effort that you're putting in, that's another document to say, look at what we're trying to do with what little we have. And you can show those intentional steps. So I would suggest putting some of that in your plan. And then those entities at the state level that look at every one of these, they can see that, and maybe that'll be a small seed that gets planted amongst another department. It says, hey, yeah, I read that in the integrated fairness plan. They're really trying hard, and these are the steps they're doing, but support here they're looking for. Put that up.
Okay, so I could put in the email, note things that you know of that are being done that can be included in the priorities.
I think some of the things like Judge McDougal spoke to today, when it came to your active threat, you're installing monitoring for weapons coming in and out. It's a little bit more intentional and defined now than it was before, right? So that's something that you completed.
So I could add it as an activity for
Add it as an activity.
2024.
Yeah, maybe it's equipment that you purchased, maybe it's organizational thing. If you capture it, I'll help you get it.
Okay.
Put in this correct.
So we want to survey other things not already listed in the plan and having been done that the intent of the plan covers.
Just throwing ideas out there for Richland County to highlight the things that you're doing.
And have done.
And have done related to this.
Yep. Okay, got it.
Like the sheriff's department wanting every person that comes into the courtroom, that's something that started in 24.
Yep, so you had to purchase the ones. Yeah. Had to train the staff. Yep. So you got equipment,
Implement a procedure.
Yep.
Okay. Send this out then?
All right, I will send that out with that caveat right there. And if you can can get it back within a week, that would be great. And I really appreciate what you're doing there. That helps a lot.
Move on to agenda item number 10, opening for the spot car.
So I did receive one bid, bill back, via email, so it's in my inbox right here. It's not, actually available on the screen. Sorry, this is the first I've opened it, so. All right, so it looks like I requested specs for two vehicles, a 2025 Ford Explorer and a 2025 Durango Pursuit. So Ford Explorer Interceptor Utility would be the correct model. And it appears that the bids for the Explorer are $45,768.50 for a single unit. And the Durango is $43,701.50. So, I guess my thoughts on that are, I would like to go with Durangos. We've had pretty good luck with them so far. And I kind of would like to keep going that direction. And it is the lower cost of the two. It appears that they give better government incentives right now than Ford is, so.
I make a motion to go with the Durango.
Motion by Mr. Manning to go with the purchase of a Durango
And we would be purchasing two.
and for two of them.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Fleming. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item number 11, approval of a casual patrol deputy.
So, in and amongst the full-time applicants, we had a party who expressed interest in not only a full-time position, but a part-time position. So we are, we're just kind of wrapping up a process, wrapping up I guess I should say a background investigation on Max Haugen. He's interested in not only a full-time position, but would like to start helping us out as a part-time or casual deputy in the meantime. So, Max currently works for the Village of Muscoda as a police officer. He's been there for a few years now. He's a Marine veteran, and local name. So,
Any relation?
what?
Any relation?
It's Tom's son, yeah. One of his sons.
Motion be appropriate for motion by Mr. Cosgrove, second by Mr. Manning. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Correspondence. Future agenda items. You got anything to add to our future agendas? All right, number 14 is adjournment. Motion by Mr. Manning, seconded by Ms. Fleming. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Carries. We're gonna fill this out, get it by the end of the week, next week.
On that quickly. And I appreciate anything that you can offer in terms of what we already have done, in addition to whatever you think we should be doing in the future. And thank you.
John.
Yes.
So one of the items to Darren's point, the camera system should be installed by December 31st. So that's